Everybody told you running destroys your knees. Your uncle said it. Your doctor probably said it too, somewhere between, "You should really cut back on sodium," and "How's the family?" And you believed it, because it sounds true. Pavement, impact, cartilage grinding down like an old tire makes sense on paper. Except it's wrong. Almost backwards wrong. And today, we're going to talk about what's actually happening inside that joint every single time your foot hits the ground, because the real story is stranger, and honestly more useful, than the one you've been telling yourself for years. By the end of this, you're going to look at your next run completely differently. Let's start with the fear itself, because it's not stupid, it's just outdated. For decades, the assumption was simple. Cartilage is like brake pads. Finite. Every mile spends a little. Run enough miles, and eventually you're bone on bone, hobbling into your 50s wondering why you ever laced up. That belief shaped how an entire generation of doctors talked to runners. Rest it. Protect it. Don't push it. Sound familiar? Maybe someone told you that exact thing after your last knee twinge, and you nodded along, because who argues with a doctor holding an X-ray? Here's the number that should stop you mid-stride. Researchers at Stanford tracked hundreds of runners for close to 20 years. Real people, aging in real time, not lab rats on a treadmill for 6 weeks. And the runners didn't end up with more knee osteoarthritis than the non-runners who sat around doing nothing. They ended up with less, significantly less disability, fewer joint replacements, better mobility into their 70s. The group everyone assumed would be falling apart first was the group aging the best. That's not a fluke. That's 2 decades of data, flipping the script on everything your doctor told you at your last physical. Sit with that for a second. The thing you were told to fear less of turned out to be protective. So if running isn't grinding your knees into dust, what is it doing? This is where it gets interesting, and where most running content just stops, because actually it's fine isn't a satisfying enough answer to build a whole video on. But it's not just fine. Cartilage responds to load the same way muscle does. Load it appropriately, and it thickens, it hydrates, it gets more resilient. Starve it of load. Sit at a desk for 10 hours a day. Avoid the stairs. Skip the run because you're saving your knees. And it thins out, weakens, becomes exactly the fragile thing everyone's afraid running will create. The people skipping runs to protect their knees are often doing the one thing guaranteed to leave those knees worse off down the road. Read that twice if you have to. It's the opposite of what you were raised to believe. Now, before you go run a marathon tomorrow to celebrate this newfound freedom, slow down. Because here's the part nobody wants to hear. The science isn't saying running is magic. It's saying running done reasonably is protective. There's a massive difference between those 2 sentences, and that difference is exactly where most runners actually get hurt. Not from running, from how they're running. And that's usually not something they notice, because it's invisible to them. It's happening in fractions of a second, over and over, thousands of times a run, completely below their radar. Which brings us to the actual problem, the one that's been sitting in your stride this whole time, and you've never once noticed it. It's not mileage, it's not pavement versus trail, it's not even your shoes, no matter what the ad in your Instagram feed is telling you right now. It's cadence. How many times your foot hits the ground per minute? Most recreational runners land somewhere in the 150s. Long, loping strides, foot reaching out ahead of the body like they're trying to cover ground for free. Feels efficient. Isn't. Every time your foot lands out in front of your center of mass, you're braking. You're absorbing shock through a straighter leg, and a huge chunk of that force gets funneled straight into the patellofemoral joint, the kneecap. There's a study out of the University of Wisconsin that measured this directly. Runners who increased their cadence by just 10%, no other changes, same pace, same shoes, same everything, dropped the impact load on their knees by over 20%, 10% more steps. 20% less punishment on the joint everyone's terrified of ruining. That's not a small effect. That's the difference between a joint that ages well and one that starts complaining by mile 10 of a training block. And the wild part is, nobody's charging you for this fix. It's free. It's just annoying to change. But cadence alone doesn't tell the whole story, and here's a contradiction most people never hear. Quad strength matters more than weekly mileage does. Researchers have found runners with weaker quads report more patellofemoral pain than runners logging way higher volume but carrying stronger legs. Meaning, the knee that hurts isn't necessarily the knee that ran too much. It's the knee that never had the muscular support to handle what running asked of it. Strange, right? We keep treating the knee like the villain, or the victim, and forget it's just following orders from the muscles around it. Blame the messenger, not the message. There's a third piece to this that almost nobody talks about, and it's the one that quietly ends more running careers than any of the others. Body weight fluctuation, specifically fast weight gain, not weight itself. Every pound you carry translates into roughly 4 to 7 times that force landing on your knee with every single step, depending on the study you're reading and the terrain you're running on. That's not a reason to panic about the number on the scale. It's a reason to understand why a runner who gains 15 pounds over a stressful winter suddenly feels their knees acting up in spring, even though nothing about their stride changed. The knee didn't get weaker. The math changed underneath it. So here's the fix, and it's almost insultingly simple. You don't need new shoes. You don't need to run less. You need a metronome app and about 2 weeks of mildly annoying discomfort while your nervous system relearns your stride. Find your current cadence, count your right foot strikes for 15 seconds, multiply by 4. Add 5 to 10%. Run to that beat for short segments, a few times a week, not your whole run, just enough for your body to start rewiring the pattern. Your stride gets shorter. Your foot starts landing closer underneath you instead of out ahead. Less braking, less vertical bounce, less force slamming through the knee on every single one of the roughly 1,700 steps you take per mile. And alongside that, twice a week, give 10 minutes to leg strength. Squats, lunges, step-ups, calf raises. Nothing fancy. Nothing that requires a gym membership or a coach yelling at you. Because a knee backed by strong quads and glutes absorbs load completely differently than a knee held together by tendon and hope. Think of the muscle as the shock absorber your car needs. Skip that part, and every pothole goes straight into the frame. Feels wrong at first. Choppy. Like you're not covering ground, like you're shuffling instead of running. That feeling is your ego arguing with your joints, and your joints should win this one. Give it 2 weeks before you judge it. Your brain rewires stride patterns faster than people expect, but faster still if you're consistent instead of perfect. And here's the moment that should actually change how you think about your next run, not just your knees. You've spent years treating discomfort as damage, treating fatigue as failure, treating your joints like they're counting down to 0 with every mile logged. They're not. They're adapting constantly to whatever you ask of them. Badly if you ask nothing of them at all. Well, if you ask something reasonable and consistent. The runners with the healthiest knees at 60 aren't the ones who ran the least. They're not the ones who quit at the first twinge. They're the ones who ran smart. Right cadence, right strength work, right recovery. Decades of small, boring, unglamorous choices. That's the whole game. Not avoidance. Calibration. So the next time someone tells you running is wrecking your knees, you don't have to argue with them. You don't need the Stanford study memorized. You don't need to quote Wisconsin cadence research at a dinner party. Just ask them one question. How's your cadence looking? Watch them not know what that even means. That's the whole conversation right there. Now, knees are one story. But there's a bigger question I've been chasing for the last month, and it's got nothing to do with joints. It's about what's happening inside your chest every single time you lace up. Something most runners never actually measure. They just guess. I strapped a heart rate monitor on for every single run, every single day, for 30 straight days. Easy days, hard days, days I didn't want to run at all and dragged myself out the door anyway. And what that data revealed about effort, recovery, and how badly most of us are misjudging our own bodies is honestly a little unsettling. Some of what I found contradicted everything I thought I knew about my own training. That's next episode, and trust me, you do not want to miss it. If this changed how you think about your next run, hit subscribe right now so you don't miss what 30 days of heart rate data actually showed. Drop a like if your knees just breathed a sigh of relief. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I genuinely want to see how far this reaches around the country and beyond. Share this with the running buddy who's convinced they're 5K away from needing a knee replacement, because they need to hear this too. And if you want the full breakdown, the training templates, and the extended cut of everything coming next, the membership link is pinned in the comments below. See you in the next one.